In 2010, when she was appointed Associate Justice of Supreme Court, she declared a net worth of 17.9 million. Ang tanong po, dito po ba sa 17.9, sabi nyo nga po, what remained of the 30 million fees from Piatco that she got from 2004 to 2009, ay kung ano yung natira, yun lang yung dineclare niya in 2010. So dito po sa 17.9 million na dineclare niya noong 2010, meron po ba siyang ibang earnings aside from Piatco na
During that intervening period? Of course, I would imagine. She was a practicing attorney then. But here's the thing, the requirement for the disclosure of assets, I'm sure she would have addressed it properly. You know, Leah, no, you distinguish the concept of earnings from the concept of assets because the requirement, both under the Constitution and the law, is to disclose assets upon assumption into office and thereafter for periodically. My sense here is that the Chief Justice, yes, disclosed all of her earnings and not only the professional fees she would have derived from her services in the Piatco transaction. No? My statement here is that yes, she would have disclosed or included, if they were still assets, earnings that she would have, that she would have made during the intervening period.
Sir, briefly lang, let's explain to the public why yung 30 million hindi naka-declare ng buo nung 2010 up to now.
You know, first point that I would like to stress, contrary to popular misimpression, that amount, a little less than 31 million, no? She earned it over a period of 5 years as counsel. Now, the rate that she charged was far less than the regular rates assessed or charged by her foreign counterparts. So she worked hard for these fees. Third point that I would like to stress is that these fees were paid to her, but there is in that arbitral ruling a directive, a judgment award, if you will, no? Assessing the attorney's fees or professional fees paid as a consequence of that victory as against the losing party. So in a real sense, no, it is not really government which would have paid her those fees. Now, when she or after she worked for 5 years, earned that amount, well, she lived. No, they bought a modest home, a modest vehicle. They equipped that modest home with furniture. Well, there was a little sadness in their family then. Father, mother had went through some medical difficulties and they eventually passed on. Well, it was the Serenos who spent for the medical expenses and the funeral expenses. And the Sereno spouses are very devoted to their church and they have been giving regularly, as expected of all devoted members of the congregation, their tithes, their love offerings. Now, and they also, as I stressed earlier, live. No? We have this family overhead expenses. And I think the answer pretty much sums up and more than adequately addresses or accounts for all of those amounts prior to her entry in the Supreme Court. I think Attorney Alex Poblador did an excellent job explaining this. The point we would like to drive home is this. We hope our countrymen and our friends in the House would understand that there must be a distinction between earnings, because earnings are not required to be reported. Taxes, all of them were paid on these earnings, no? The requirement is to disclose
taxes
assets.
Through the income tax return?
Yes, upon receipt of any and all the fees that she would have received, no? She would be subject to withholding taxes, and then she would include the remaining amounts in her final ITR, accumulated with the other income as required of every citizen. You know, all the documents are there, the income tax returns and everything. This would essentially show to the public that this particular allegation of Attorney Gadon appears to be have been made on the basis of perhaps misinformation.
Sir, the issue of wealth of public officials is very controversial nowadays.
Of course.
If we get to the point that people demand that Chief Justice Sereno sign a bank waiver, would she?
You know, well, as a person, as a lawyer, she does understand the import or the significance of the bank secrecy law. I'm sure she has her specific concerns. But I think I should try and make the people understand here that ever since Attorney Poblador took over the case, no, well, the Chief Justice, being the wise lawyer that she is, I think has every intention of being an obedient client. So in this regard, I should state that she would be guided by advice of counsel. And so we will leave it up to Attorney
So, sir,
Podol.
what is the inclination of the counsel?
Lian, I will tell you this, no? I do not see any point. I do not see this issue as arising because there was never any allegation to the effect that there was a disclosure of income during or wealth during her incumbency as a member of the Supreme Court. Now, technically, from the legal perspective, evidence-wise, maybe that the disclosures as to bank accounts may be relevant. But no, the allegations here were with respect to her earnings long before she entered. There is no issue as to corruption committed by her during her incumbency. So, from my meager experience as a lawyer, no, I don't think that there would be any reason for this issue to ever arise at all, or at least it would be warranted. Now, if there,
You don't see it getting to that point that she's required?
well, I hope not. No, there can be playful minds in these proceedings, and they may test the waters. But I think that our friends in Congress, both in the lower house and in the Senate, would be able to understand an issue, a non-issue, from a real one. Now, we have to have placed confidence in our legislators because to them has been entrusted the task of acting as judges here. Well, I would like to quote my sister, Candy, by way of paraphrase. We have every confidence that they would be reasonable minds and address this particular process or proceeding with a full cognizance full realization of the importance of their role.
Sir, if she is asked to sign a bank waiver, would the Chief Justice
Yes,
do
I
it?
have learned this from one of my colleagues as spokespersons, that there is a waiver in her accomplished and submitted statements of assets and liabilities consistent with the law to the effect that she is waiving her rights with respect to documents that may be required of the Ombudsman in connection with any investigation that the Ombudsman may decide to pursue against her, if and when that happens.
Sir, another controversial issue nowadays is what are public officials required to put in their SALN? And I saw the Chief Justice's SALN, wala pong mga value yung mga financial investments niya like in Seaport, PLDT. Could you enlighten us? Is this required?
Well,
Is this not required?
I have been away from public office for a long time. My understanding is that the matter of preparing the SALN has become a very complicated and tedious process, I would not want to indicate in this conversation the specific requirements. But here's the point, Lian, She did not make any effort not to disclose all of these investments. They were specified in the answer. They are indicated. I don't know if I have not seen the SALN, but if you say that they were indicated in general terms, maybe the bottom line figure is there anyway. And I don't think there would be any problem in the Chief Justice's specification of all of these items listed as investments. She has the documents, and these are, I imagine, evidenced by certificates of stock. There can be no non-disclosure with respect to these things.
Sir, enlighten us also, bakit daw po kaya hindi nag-divest ang Chief Justice from her
Well,
financial
is there a need for her to divest? We are all telephone subscribers and therefore shareholders of PLDT. Is there need to divest? As far as I know, there is no requirement for divestment in this regard. And besides, my understanding is that these investments in the context of big business, etc., they would be considered perhaps as minimal, things that perhaps she is a lawyer. I don't think she is a businessman. Maybe it was because only of discussions with friends that this may be a good investment. But this is by no means a matter that is really of serious concern in terms of the Chief
Sir,
Justice.
paano daw po kung nagkakaso itong mga kumpanyang ito sa Supreme Court?
Well, I think in the first place, I doubt very much if she would have any majority shareholding here. My thinking here is that like a PLDT subscription because of PLDT landlines installed in our homes, this would be nominal. But I imagine, if there were a serious concern regarding potential conflict of interest, well, the Chief Justice, let's give her a little credit here. I hope that she will be given that little credit to have the good sense, and I think she would do this, to recuse herself, to inhibit herself from the proceedings. I don't think she would have any problem there. And for all I know, she may have done so already in connection with some cases.